I learned to check the fence lines at dawn because that was when the world told you its secrets. Broken wire meant deer passing through. Hoof prints meant neighbors cutting across my land without asking. The morning after became 18 months. I found both. The ranch wasn't much 200 acres of scrub grass and stubborn hope in the shadow of the Rockies. But it was mine now. Mine in the way things become yours when someone dies and leaves you holding the deed and the shovel both. I walked the northern boundary where our land, my land, touched the Barrett property. 3 sets of horse tracks, fresh from overnight. They'd ridden close to my barn, circled it, rode off toward the main road. I stood there counting the prints, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Not fear. Not yet. Just knowing. The town blamed me when Thomas died. Not out loud. Not directly. But in the way women do the sideways glances. The conversations that stopped when I entered the general store. The church ladies who stopped bringing casseroles after the 3rd week. He'd been checking the south pasture fence when his horse spooked. Threw him. Broke his neck clean. I was there. Couldn't do a damn thing about it. Some people thought I should have done something anyway. Should have known. Should have prevented. Should have somehow kept death from taking what it wanted. As if love was armor. As if being a wife came with the power to hold back the inevitable. I'd stopped trying to defend myself after the 1st month. Easier to be alone than to keep proving I deserved to exist. The gelding. Thomas's horse, my horse, now waited at the fence line. He'd been skittish since the accident. Barely let me approach. I understood that. Some griefs don't fade. They just become part of your gait. Back at the cabin, I set 1 plate on the table. 1 cup for coffee, bitter and black the way I'd learned to drink it. I'd forgotten sugar existed. Forgotten sweetness was possible. The hunting knife sat on the counter where I'd left it the night before, cleaned and oiled. Habit from another life. I picked it up, tested the edge against my thumb. Still sharp. I'd learned to keep it that way the summer the mountain lions came. Sarah had been 5. Matthew 7. Thomas was in Denver selling cattle. 3 days I tracked those cats through the high country. Following the kills, they left behind a neighbor's calf. Our best laying hen. Getting bolder and closer to the house. I found them at dusk on the 3rd day, too close to the creek where my children played. Fear tried to crawl up my spine that evening. I pictured it literally, something with claws. I didn't let it reach my brain. The first lion I shot, the second, I ran out of bullets. So I used the knife. People in town heard about it, called me unnatural. A woman who could kill like that, they said. Maybe she could let a man die too. The logic made no sense. I stopped expecting logic from frightened people. I set the knife down, poured my coffee. Through the window, I could see the barn standing solid against the morning light, full of winter hay. Tools organized the way Thomas taught me. The horses' stalls clean and ready. My security, my proof I could manage alone. I wondered sometimes if loneliness was a choice I kept making, or a sentence handed down by people who couldn't forgive me for surviving when he didn't. The sun climbed higher. I had fence to mend, animals to feed, a life to maintain. I drank my coffee standing up, rinsed the single cup, set it to dry beside the other one I'd forgotten to pack away. Some ghosts didn't need exercising. Some I'd learned to live with. I locked the cabin door behind me, locked the world out, locked myself in. The distinction mattered less each day. Orange light woke me 3 hours past midnight. Wrong color for moonlight. Wrong intensity for dawn. I knew what it was before my feet hit the floor. The barn was burning. I ran outside in my nightdress and boots, grabbed the rifle from beside the door. 4 shapes on horses watched from the rise, silhouetted black against the flames. No words, no threats. The message was clear as the fire eating through 18 months of my work. I raised the rifle, sighted on the nearest rider. They didn't move, daring me. Maybe. Or knowing I wouldn't waste bullets on shadows. They rode off slow, deliberate, making sure I watched them leave. I didn't fire. Stood there while the barn turned to light and heat and loss. Calculating what I couldn't afford to lose. Winter hay for 2 horses. Tools I'd need for spring planting. The saddle Thomas's father gave him. The spare harness. My security for the cold months ahead. Fear tried to crawl up my spine. I pictured it literally. Gave it shape and claws. Didn't let it reach my brain. If I let fear in, I'd never get it out. The roof collapsed inward with a sound like the world breaking. Sparks lifted into the dark sky. I watched them drift and die. Small lights going out one by one. When dawn came, I was sitting in the dirt, drawing plans with a stick in the ash-dusted ground. Foundation there, support beams here. The barn wouldn't build itself by me staring at ruins. Hoofbeats approached from the east. Single rider. My hand found the rifle without thinking. He rode easy, cavalry posture even this early. Weathered face. Maybe 40. With the kind of eyes that had seen things and decided to keep seeing anyway. His horse was well kept, tack maintained. Details registered automatically Scout's habit of reading men by their equipment. He pulled up 20 feet out, hands visible, looked at the smoking barn, at me in my nightdress holding a rifle, at the stick drawings in the dirt. "Saw the smoke," he said. "Figured someone might need help. I don't need charity. Didn't figure you for someone who'd turned down practical help out of pride." He dismounted slow, kept his hands where I could see them. Expected to find someone who needed rescuing. Found you drawing blueprints instead. I studied his face for pity. Found none. Curiosity. Maybe respect. Surprisingly, that unsettled me more than the fire had. Former cavalry. I asked, "Scout, mustered out 2 years back." He walked closer, looked at my drawings. "You know what you're doing." Built the first one with my husband. The words came out flat. Facts. Not feelings. I remember how he nodded like that made sense. Like women rebuilt their own barns every day. "Name's Cole. Cole Hendricks. I'm headed to Montana, but I'm in no hurry." He met my eyes. "I could stay a week. Help you get the frame up." Something in me wanted to scream. Wanted to rage at the universe for this fresh cruelty, the fire. The strangers. The impossible task of rebuilding alone. I didn't. Screaming was a luxury for women with someone to hear them. I did the math instead. Pride versus winter. One person couldn't rebuild a barn before snow. 2 people might. 1 week, I said. Then you move on. "Yes, ma'am." I almost corrected him, "Mrs. Not Ma'am," then realized I wasn't sure which was more accurate anymore. Widow existed somewhere between the two. A category no one wanted to claim. "There's a tack shed that survived." I pointed with the rifle. You can sleep there. I provide meals. You work sunrise to sunset. Sounds fair. No questions about my past. No assumptions about my capabilities. He smiled. Just a little. Wouldn't dream of it. It was the first full-sentence conversation I'd had with another human in 6 days. I hadn't realized until that moment how much silence could accumulate, how heavy it could get. Morning after the fire, we salvaged what we could. I worked as hard as he did, refusing to supervise from safety. When you rebuild your life with your own hands, you don't delegate the hard parts. Cole. I still thought of him as the stranger, but using his name seemed like minimum courtesy worked. Methodically. He didn't talk much. Neither did I. We communicated through gesture and the rhythm of shared labor. Foundation should go here, I said, marking the ground. Weight-bearing walls here and here. He studied my marks. You want the same dimensions. No. Bigger. If I'm rebuilding, I'm building it right. He didn't question the decision. Didn't mansplain structural engineering. Just nodded and started measuring. That surprised me. Most men I knew couldn't help but explain things to women, even things women already knew. We found tools in the wreckage, scorched but usable. A hammer with the handle burned black. Nails scattered in the ash. 2 saws that would need sharpening but weren't ruined. Small victories in the mathematics of loss. What brings you to Montana? I asked at midday. More to break the silence than from curiosity. Land? Looking for a place that doesn't remind me of anything. Running from something toward something. I hope. He paused in his work. Did 8 years scouting for the cavalry. Saw things that don't let you sleep easy. Figured Montana might be far enough. I understood that. Geography as cure. Distance as medicine. Does it work? Don't know yet. Still moving. We worked through the afternoon heat. I noticed things. The way he deferred to my decisions. How he asked my opinion on beam placement like my answer mattered. How he left space between us when we worked, respected boundaries without them needing to be spoken. He noticed things too. I could tell. The way I carried the rifle everywhere. How I scanned the horizon every few minutes. The tension I couldn't quite hide. He never mentioned it. We stood on opposite ends of a foundation beam at sunset, measuring. The coordination required made me aware this was the first building project with another person since Thomas died. My hands remembered working in tandem. The memory ached like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. You've done this before, he said. Thomas taught me. Said a rancher's wife should know every job on the property. Smart man. Dead man. The words came out harder than I meant. Smart didn't save him. Cole didn't flinch. No, it usually doesn't. Evening came. I set 2 plates on my table for the first time in 18 months. Did it automatically. Realized what I'd done. Didn't change it. We ate in near silence. Beans and bread. Nothing fancy. I'd forgotten how to cook for company. I counted his breaths across the table without meaning to. Wondered when I'd forgotten what it sounded like. Someone else being alive in my space. Week should be enough for the frame. He said, if the weather holds. It'll hold. I didn't know that. But certainty was a weapon, too. After he left for the tack shed, I washed both plates, dried them, put them away. The second cup sat on the shelf next to mine. I studied them there, 2 matching pieces of tin, no longer lonely in their utility. What surprised me wasn't his competence. What surprised me was how much I'd forgotten what it felt like to work beside someone instead of alone. How much lighter the load felt when someone else helped shoulder it. I told myself it was practical. A week of shared labor for a finished barn. But I felt him in the space, even when he wasn't there the way you feel. Weather changing before the first drop of rain. 3 days passed in a rhythm of sawing and hammering and the satisfying thunk of nails driven true. The barn took shape. We worked dawn to dusk. Rebuilding what fire had taken, I started noticing things. He repaired my broken porch step without asking permission. Set coffee to boil before I woke. Organized salvaged tools by type hammers with hammers. Saws with saws, the way my mind wanted them, but my exhaustion hadn't managed. Kindnesses delivered silently, as if he was afraid speaking them would make me reject them. He might have been right. We talked more on the 4th day, not about anything important. Land and weather and the way fence wire contracted in cold. He told cavalry stories, not glory tales, but hard truths about scouting work. The loneliness of it. The violence that haunted after. "You kill men?" I asked, not dancing around it. "Yes. Haunt you. Every night." I respected that answer. Lies about violence were easy. Truth cost something. On the 5th day. He asked about my gelding. He's skittish, minds his space. His rider died. Horses remember that. Cole walked to the fence slow. Let the horse come to him. The gelding Thunder, though I never called him that anymore, watched him wary. Cole talked low, words I couldn't hear. Extended his hand, waited. Thunder stepped forward, touched his nose to Cole's palm. I watched from the barn, felt something in my chest crack. Didn't examine it. Animals knew things. People pretended not to. My horse had made a judgment I wasn't ready to make. "You're good with him," I said later. "Horses are easier than people. You know where you stand. Do you—" I looked at him direct. "Know where you stand." He met my eyes. "I know where I'd like to stand. Don't know if I've earned it yet." The week deadline passed that evening. Neither of us mentioned it. Town gossip reached me on the 6th day. Martha Patterson from the church committee wrote out. Uninvited. Brought a pie. Asked pointed questions about my guest. "He's helping rebuild," I said. So we heard. People are talking, Eleanor. People always are. A woman alone with a strange man. Was alone. Then my barn burned. Now I'm rebuilding. Which part troubles you? She left without an answer. I fed her pie to the chickens that evening. Cole asked how long I'd been alone. Since the day I buried my husband. I poured coffee, bitter and strong. Before that, in different ways? What does that mean? I hadn't planned to tell him, but the words came anyway. Town blamed me. Said I should have saved him. Maybe they were right. Were you holding the reins? No. I was 50 feet away. Then they're wrong. Simple. Certain. No room for argument. Something in me uncoiled. Just slightly. Just enough. I'd forgotten what it felt like. Having someone anticipate my needs. Thomas used to do that. I'd convinced myself I didn't miss it. I'd lied. Cole's laugh surprised me when I heard it the first time, rare and genuine. Like something saved for worthy moments. I wondered what else he saved. What other pieces of himself he kept locked away? I understood that instinct. I caught myself setting out 2 cups before remembering I'd need 2 cups. Old habits, I told myself. New habits. Myself answered, "You could stay longer," I said. Didn't plan it. The words just arrived. "If you wanted plenty of work?" He looked at me careful. "You sure?" "I'm sure I could use the help. I'm sure Montana will still be there next month." I paused. "I'm sure I'm asking. Then I'm saying yes." That night I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the ranch, wind in the grass, horses shifting in their makeshift shelter, and underneath it all, the knowledge that someone else breathed in my space. That I'd chosen that. That choosing felt dangerous and necessary both. Week 2, the barn frame stood strong, just roofing left. I insisted on working the peak alone my choice. My stubbornness, I'd built half a life on stubbornness. Why stop now? I misjudged my footing on the pitched roof. Felt the world tilt. My boots losing purchase on sun-warmed wood. Started to slide. Cole was below. Caught my momentum barely. And we tumbled together into the hay pile we'd gathered for exactly this purpose. No injury. Just impact and adrenaline and his arms around me and my heart trying to beat through my ribs. "You all right?" His voice close. "Fine." I wasn't fine. I was shaking. Shock and adrenaline and something else I didn't want to name. He didn't let go immediately. "Eleanor," I said I'm fine, and I'm saying we're stopping for the day. I wanted to argue. Couldn't form words. He helped me up, led me to the creek, made me sit. I hated being managed, hated more that I needed it. We sat by the water while my hands steadied. The creek moved over stones, indifferent to human drama. I watched it and tried to remember how to breathe normally. "I tracked mountain lions once," I said. Didn't plan to tell him. The words just started coming. Summer 3 years back. Thomas was in Denver. They came down from the high country, killing livestock, getting bolder, coming closer to the house. Cole listened without interrupting. I couldn't let my children lose their mother and their father in the same year. I picked up a stone, turned it in my palm, took the rifle and the knife, tracked them 3 days, found them near the creek where Sarah and Matthew played. What happened? I shot the first one, ran out of bullets. The second came at me. I showed him the scar on my forearm, pale and jagged. Used the knife. He studied the scar. "How old were your children?" 5 and 7. Old enough to know their mama wasn't coming back if I failed. Young enough to need me to come back. You went anyway. Wasn't a choice. Was necessity. I met his eyes. Town heard about it. Called me unnatural. A woman who could kill like that, they said. Maybe she could let a man die, too. That's cruel, illogical, yes. I threw the stone into the creek. But grief makes people need someone to blame. I was convenient. Cole was quiet a long moment. Then I left the cavalry after we massacred a village. Orders were orders. They said I couldn't stomach it anymore. Couldn't stomach myself. "So you've been running, walking, looking for a place that feels like peace instead of battlefield." He paused. "Violence follows some men." I was trying to outright it. "Does it work?" Don't know yet. Still walking. I'd carried the mountain lion story like proof of something that I could survive, that I was capable. But sitting there, I realized I'd also carried it like a shield. If I was dangerous enough, maybe people would leave me alone. Maybe I'd believe I wanted them to. Cole didn't look at me like I was broken, didn't look at me like I needed fixing, just looked at me like I was someone who'd survived things. And surviving was enough. I wasn't used to that. Didn't trust it. Almost wanted it. You think needing help makes you weak? He asked. I think depending on people who leave makes you a fool. Fair enough. He stood, offered his hand. But I'm still here. I took his hand, let him help me up. The touch lasted longer than necessary. Neither of us mentioned it. Walking back to the barn, I felt something shift. Like a door I'd locked from the inside. Someone was knocking, not demanding entry, just making presence known. The choice to open it was still mine. That night I lay awake, aware of his presence in the tack shed, aware that I hadn't asked him to leave, aware that not asking felt like its own kind of answer. They came back at dusk on the 14th day. 5 riders this time. More confident, more dangerous. The barn was nearly complete roof on, walls sealed, a monument to refusal. They'd expected ruins and an absent widow, found rebuilding and witnesses instead. I recognized them. Barrett from the neighboring ranch, his sons. 2 hired hands. Men who'd made pointed comments in town about my unnatural independence. About how a woman alone was wrong somehow. Offensive to the natural order. They expected to find me alone. Cole stood beside me. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. His presence spoke volumes. Fear rose in my throat. I counted horses, men, weapons visible on hips and saddles. The mathematics of violence. But anger ran deeper. Fear tried to crawl up my spine again. This time I let it reach my brain, let it sharpen into fury. They'd come to my land. That was the mistake. Barrett leaned forward in his saddle. Mrs. Crawford, we need to talk. Then talk. This land, it's not right. A woman alone, not natural, not safe. My safety is my concern. Your barn burned. Accident. Maybe. Could happen again. The threat was clear as daylight. We're prepared to make you a fair offer. You sell. Move to town. Everyone's happy. I'm happy here. This is your last warning. Eleanor. Barrett's voice hardened. Next time might be worse than a barn. Hands moved toward weapons. Tension coiled like rope about to snap. Cole shifted slightly, positioned himself careful, but he stayed silent, letting me handle this my way. I stepped forward, made my choice. Jim Barrett. I said his full name. Made it personal. You burned my barn thinking I'd run. I rebuilt it. What do you think burning it again will accomplish, except proving you're afraid of a woman with a hammer? His face darkened. I kept talking. 5 armed men, coming to threaten one widow. You planning to tell your wives about this? Your daughters. Explain to them how you drove off a woman trying to survive on land she earned. The youngest son looked uncomfortable. Good. My children are grown. Sarah's in Denver, Matthew's in Santa Fe, but they're still mine. I met each man's eyes in turn. Now you have children too, wives, mothers. What will they think of what you did here? That you couldn't stomach a woman succeeding where you thought she'd fail. Silence stretched. I could see the calculation happening, the shame becoming visible. This is my land. I've paid for it in ways you'll never understand. I'm not leaving. Not for fire. Not for threats. Not for your fear of what it means when a woman stands on ground she's earned. I'd learned something fighting those mountain lions predators. Respect two things: strength and refusal to show throat. I couldn't outfight 5 men, but I could refuse to look away first. Thomas used to say I had a gift for words that cut cleaner than knives. He'd meant it as compliment. Standing there. I meant it as weapon. Barrett spat in the dirt. You're making a mistake. Only mistake here is yours. Coming to my land, making threats, thinking I'd fold. I paused. Leave. Don't come back. They left, not defeated, but frustrated, their certainty shaken. I'd made them see what they were doing. Cowards hiding behind fire, and numbers and shame was stronger than anger. After they rode off, I realized I was trembling. Adrenaline draining away, leaving exhaustion behind. Cole stood close. Didn't touch me, but near enough I could feel his presence. You didn't need me for that. I considered lying, told truth instead. No, but I'm glad you were here anyway. The admission cost something. Worth it. Inside. I poured coffee with shaking hands. Cole took the cup without comment. They'll come back, I said. Maybe, probably. Then we'll be ready. He set his cup down. Or you could leave. Sell. Start over somewhere else. Would you? No. Then don't suggest I should. He smiled. Small, but real. Fair enough. That night, the fear was larger, the threat more concrete. They knew where I lived. How alone I was, how alone I wasn't anymore. Which maybe made it worse. I'd made Cole a target just by letting him help me. I lay awake, counting consequences, wondering if stubbornness was courage or just pride wearing a different name. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed calculating scenarios they'd come back with more men. Burn more than the barn next time. Hurt one of us to make their point. Logic said, sell, leave. Start over, somewhere less hostile. Pride said stay. I didn't know which voice to trust. I rose at midnight, walked the property in moonlight, trying to think through fear to clarity. Stood where the barn used to be, where it now stood again, touched the new wood. Still smelled like sawdust and possibility. Calculated escape cell quickly. Take the loss. Find land in Montana or California where no one knew me or what I'd survived. The mathematics made sense. It also felt like dying. Footsteps behind me. I didn't turn. Knew his walk by now. Can't sleep? Cole asked. Can't stop thinking. He stood beside me. Didn't ask permission. Just occupied space. Easy and careful both. Long silence. The kind that meant something. Finally, I broke it. I don't know if I can do this again. The words came out raw. The rebuilding, the fighting, the constant proving I deserve to exist here. I'm tired. He didn't rush to answer. Didn't offer false comfort. Just listened. Thomas used to say I was the strongest person he knew. I'm not. I am just stubborn. There's a difference. I wrapped my arms around myself. Stubbornness runs out eventually. I think mine's running out. What would you tell your daughter? Cole asked. If she stood on land she'd earned and someone told her to leave. The question stopped me. I thought about Sarah, grown now, married, living in Denver. Thought about the kind of woman I wanted her to be. The lessons I'd tried to teach through example instead of words. I'd tell her. I paused. Started over. I'd tell her that land is just land. Dirt and grass and fences. That it's not worth dying for. But I'd also tell her that sometimes you stand your ground, not because the ground matters, but because you matter. Because the world needs to see women standing. Because the girls coming after her need to know it's possible. You believe that I have to. The moon made everything silver and strange. I survived mountain lions, widowhood, isolation, fire. But the thing I can't survive is becoming the kind of woman who runs when standing is hard. Not because I'd lose the land, because I'd lose myself. Cole was quiet a long moment. Then I stayed, not because of the barn. I looked at him. I stayed because leaving you to face this alone felt impossible. I know that's not my decision to make. But I needed you to know I'm not here out of pity or duty. I'm here because leaving would be harder. Something in my chest loosened, or tightened, or both. Montana's still there. He continued. But I'm not sure it's where I'm meant to be anymore. Spent 2 years walking away from things. Maybe it's time to walk towards something instead. I wondered when the land had stopped being Thomas's legacy and started being mine. When I'd stopped defending what he'd built and started building something new entirely. The barn was mine. The scars were mine. The choice was mine. Courage wasn't one big choice. It was this. Every night. Choosing not to run. Help me finish the barn, I said. Not asking. Offering. Then we'll see what comes next. I'd like that. But you should know. I turned to face him. I don't run. Not anymore. Not from land. Not from threats. Not from... I stopped. Didn't finish. Didn't need to. I know. His voice soft. I'm counting on it. We walked back in silence. But it felt less lonely than any silence I'd known. Like the space between words was full, instead of empty. Like quiet could be communion if you let it. The barn completion became a statement. We finished the work with deliberate care, every nail driven straight. Every board fitted perfect. Then we painted it white, visible from distance, impossible to miss. I wasn't hiding anymore. I rode to town on a Tuesday, told the sheriff about the threats. He was useless, said he couldn't do anything without proof, but I put it on record. Let him know I wouldn't disappear quietly if something happened. Stopped at the general store. Spread the word deliberately through Mrs. Patterson and the church committee. The widow's barn was rebuilt. She wasn't alone. People should know. Cole suggested posting notice about property defense laws at the post office. My legal right to defend with force. Smart thinking. We did it that afternoon. Then I added my own touch. Invited the church women to a barn-raising celebration. Made it public. Created witnesses. Mrs. Patterson looked suspicious. You're not usually one for socializing. I'm not usually one for having my barn burned. I met her eyes, but I rebuilt it. Thought people should know. Some of the younger women accepted. The curious ones. The ones who maybe understood what it meant to watch me survive. They came on Thursday afternoon with pies and questions and eyes that noticed everything, especially Cole. Let them notice. Let them talk. Their tongues wagging was protection, too. Barrett and 2 others returned on Saturday. Daylight this time. Smaller group. Wary. They rode up slow, seeing the barn complete and painted, seeing women's wagons in the distance. I was waiting on the porch, rifle across my lap. Not aimed, just present. Mrs. Crawford. Barrett's voice was different, less certain. Mr. Barrett. I stayed seated. Relaxed. Made him work for it. Something I can do for you. We came to... He stopped. Started over. The barn looks good. It does. We wanted to make sure there were no hard feelings. About the fire. You admitting to arson. Jim. No. Just saying accidents happen. They do. I leaned forward slightly. Let me tell you what else happens. Women who've killed mountain lions with knives don't run from men who hide behind fire. Women who've buried husbands and built lives alone don't fold when cowards make threats. His jaw tightened. You wanted me gone. I'm still here. You wanted me broken. I rebuilt. You wanted me alone. I chose my company. I gestured toward Cole, standing visible near the barn. What you want doesn't matter on my land. Never did. Never will. Barrett looked at his men, looked at the barn, looked at me. This is done. I said, you'll leave. You won't come back. And next time you feel the urge to run off a widow, you'll remember how that worked out this time. How 5 armed men couldn't intimidate one woman with a hammer and some help. They left. Barrett nodded as he went, not respect exactly, but acknowledgement. They wouldn't return. The cost of trying again was higher than their fear of me succeeding. After they were gone, Cole walked over. You didn't need... Don't. I stood. Don't say I didn't need you. Maybe I didn't. But need and want are different things. I wanted you here. I want you to stay. The words hung between us. Too honest. Too raw. Too true. I should probably move on to Montana, he said slowly, testing. Before winter. Or you could stay. Help me work this land. See if what we've built extends beyond lumber and nails. My heart hammered. Choice was a terrifying thing, especially when you'd spent so long having choices made for you by death and circumstance and other people's fear. If you're sure, Cole said. I'm sure I'm tired of choosing fear over possibility. I'm sure 2 people defending this land is smarter than one. I paused. I'm sure I don't want to wake up tomorrow and find you gone. The moment before I asked him to stay felt like standing on that barn roof again, knowing the ground was far, knowing I might fall. The difference was, this time I was choosing to jump. This time I trusted he'd be there. "Then I'm staying," he said. That evening, we rearranged the cabin. His things moved from tack shed to the small room off the kitchen. Not my room. Not yet. But closer. A step toward 2 chairs on the porch now. I'd built the second one myself last week, pretending it was practical. Pretending I didn't know what it meant. "You'll tell me," he said, sitting down. "If this is wrong, if you need space, you'll tell me if Montana calls you back." He smiled. "Only thing calling me is coffee. You going to teach me to make it less bitter." Never? Suffering builds character. First time I'd joked in his presence. Felt like victory. Felt like coming home. Standing in that barn earlier, I'd realized we'd built more than shelter. We'd built proof. Proof that I could accept help without losing myself. Proof that partnership didn't mean surrender. Proof that starting over didn't require running away. 3 months later, early spring. The barn weathered its first winter without complaint. So did we. I'm writing this in the evening, watching Cole teach himself poetry from my hidden volumes of Whitman and Dickinson. He stumbles over words, laughs at himself, keeps trying. I correct pronunciation. Don't correct his joy. We worked the land together through snow and cold different strengths, complementary weaknesses, morning coffee, still bitter, divided labor, evening conversations that stretched longer each week, small domesticity, built one day at a time. Town acceptance came slowly. The church women broke the ice. Others followed. We're not embraced. Exactly. But we're no longer shunned. Progress measured in inches. My children visited over Christmas. Sarah was 7 months pregnant. Matthew brought his new wife. They met Cole. Watched us together. Saw their mother happy in ways they didn't remember. Sarah pulled me aside. "Are you sure?" "Mama, I've never been less sure and more certain at the same time." She understood that. Women do. I see now that the mountain lion moment prepared me not for physical courage, but for existential truth. Sometimes you face impossible things with inadequate tools because the alternative is unacceptable. The barn burning wasn't the test. The choice afterward was, I'd believed for so long that strength meant standing alone. What I learned was that choosing to stand together, when you could stand alone, is a different kind of courage entirely. Harder. Maybe, definitely riskier. But the loneliness of being strong alone had its own kind of death in it. Cole teaches me tracking now. How to read stories in disturbed earth, broken twigs, shifted stones. I teach him poetry, Whitman's sprawling hope, Dickinson's compressed truth. We trade knowledge like currency, equal value given and received. Sometimes in the morning, half awake, I reach across the bed expecting emptiness. Finding warmth instead still surprises me. I think it always will. Loss teaches you not to trust presence. Learning to trust again is its own kind of rebuilding. The barn stands white against blue sky. My barn. Our barn. The language shifts without noticing. Grammar is revolution, singular becoming plural. I becoming we, not erasure, evolution. If you're reading this, and I write it like someone might. Like someday, My daughter or her daughter might need these words. Let me tell you what I learned. If you're a woman facing intimidation, facing loss, facing the choice between running and standing, resilience isn't about never falling. It's about rising every single time. But here's what they don't tell you. Rising doesn't mean rising alone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept the hand offered to help you up. Not because you can't rise alone. You can. But because partnership isn't surrender. It's multiplication. Fear is real. Threats are real. Loss is devastating. I don't minimize those things. But I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite it. It's waking up and choosing again, every morning, to stay when leaving would be easier. Your strength isn't measured by what you avoid. It's measured by what you overcome, especially when you don't have to overcome it alone. Evening light turns everything gold. Cole reads Whitman aloud, stumbling over Song of Myself, laughing at his own confusion. I correct him. Don't correct his enthusiasm. The land stretches before us, hard won and held firm. They thought fire would erase me. Instead, it forged something stronger than what came before. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite it. And your strength is measured not by what you avoid, but by what you overcome. Sometimes alone, sometimes together, both sacred, both true.